Hello, and welcome to the Assessment Alchemist Podcast, where we transform the daunting world of assessments into a journey of empowerment and achievement for educators and students alike. I'm Tina Wiles, your guide in this quest to conquer test anxiety and unlock the secrets of effective test preparation. In each episode, we'll mix the perfect blend of expert insights, of practical strategies, and inspiring stories, all designed to help you turn test taking into a positive, enriching experience for your students. Whether you're a teacher, a school counselor, or an educational enthusiast, you're in the right place to create alchemy in learning and assessment. So let's dive into today's topic and discover how we could turn educational challenges into opportunities for growth and success. Welcome to the Assessment Alchemist. Episode 10. I'm so excited. And today we are going to talk about recall rescue, beating test anxiety and remembering what you know. And why this topic is top of mind for me today is I actually was speaking with someone last night who is studying for a professional exam, entrance to a professional school, right? This is graduated, undergraduate, and trying to go to graduate school. And she is in this permanent stress response. Okay. This permanent fight or flight mode when it comes to taking this exam. And what happens when you're in this permanent stress response that cannot recall the information that you know? Okay. And I'm sure we've all had students say things like, oh, my mind goes blank, or I can't remember things. Like they actually know the material. But when it comes to taking the exam, that knowledge is not coming across. Um, and so when we're in that fight or flight mode, like if you think about it kind of like as Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Um, the content that we want to know is at that bottom level, right? Like we know it and it's in there, and like you could do it on homework and like it makes sense, but you cannot access that when at the top of that triangle is in fight or flight, right? Like in that fight or flight mode, our minds are not equipped for how do I solve a system of equations in math. It is thinking, thanks to biology, am I being chased by a saber-toothed tiger? Like, am I actually afraid for my life right now? Right? Our the body does not know the difference between what like that perceived threat, right? Like they don't know, it doesn't know that the stress that you're feeling in exam is not going to actually harm you. Okay. And so why it's difficult to access information actually boils down to four things. Okay. So the first is physiological changes. There are stress hormones that are released when you're in fight or flight mode, cortisol and adrenaline, and they can impair memory retrieval. Okay. The hormones in your body are actually fighting against you to recall information when you're experiencing test anxiety. Okay. So it does that, first of all, by interfering with the hippocampus in the brain. That's actually the area of our brain that's responsible for retrieving memories and information. So stress hormones disrupt its functioning. Crazy. Um, it also, these hormones, the cortisol and adrenaline, decrease prefrontal cortex activity. Okay, so that's actually the area that we're using to make decisions. Okay, so not only does it make it difficult to recall the information, but it makes it difficult for us to make decisions. Okay, that alone, you're like, oh my gosh, no wonder when someone says they're experiencing test anxiety, they have a hard time doing it, right? That alone. Now you take into that narrowed focus. Like that's the second thing that happens. And that's where I'm saying like our body doesn't know that we're not being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, right? Your body, you're like focused on I'm like, I need to survive and not how do I solve a systems of equations, right? Like your body is automatically narrows focus and is prioritizing your survival over the cognitive tasks of recalling information, and your hormones are fighting against it. The other thing that comes into play with that stress response are negative thoughts like, I can't do this. I always get this question wrong. And like creates that mental dialogue. And we have another episode talking about how to stop that mental dialogue, but that does happen with the fight or flight mode as well. And it's difficult to concentrate. Okay. Um, and like kind of all this goes together. When you're having a hard time remembering, it's going to be hard to concentrate because you're getting frustrated. Um, so the good news is that all this is fighting against you, right? Like that, like I said, that hierarchy, right? The test, and then you also have the self-talk and like some other areas there. But what we need to do to be able to access that information that students know is to turn down, like basically it's you're activating the parasympathetic nervous system. And how we can do that is there are a couple of ways that I can recommend that can really help. We need to turn off the fight or flight mode. In other podcasts, I've talked about breathing, right? So deep breathing is one way to activate the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve will activate that parasympathetic nervous system and to calm down the test anxiety, take you out of fight or flight mode, right? And once out of fight or flight mode, then you can access the information, the memory recall gets better. So deep breathing can help. There's also let me look at my notes. um Progressive muscle relaxation. So progressive muscle relaxation is where you like, and you're not going to do this like during a test, but trying to calm down before a test can help. Where you actually start either at your toes or the tip of your head, and you think about like right now. I'll start at my toes, and I think about tight. I squeeze my toes. Okay. And then I relax them. And then I go to my ankles or my calves. So I tighten my calves, hold it, relax. Then you go to your thighs and you squeeze your thighs. And then you relax. So you're getting the idea. Progressive muscle relaxation is you just go through your entire body, focusing on only one area at a time, contracting and then relaxing. And then when you relax, it's actually going to relax more than it was to begin with. Um, any mindfulness and meditation. So we talked about mindfulness and meditation with the expert we had on a couple weeks ago. But one thing I want to talk about today that I haven't mentioned yet is emotional freedom technique or tapping. And what tapping is kind of like a shortcut into getting out of that fight or flight mode. And there are many videos. Brad Yates is someone that I love on YouTube that has a lot of videos when it comes to tapping on pretty much any subject. But what it is you actually tap in several spots on your body. Um, and these are like energy meridian lines. So it goes back to like Chinese medicine. But tapping on these, this is a weird one, I know, under your arms, but tapping on these points, and then you can say phrases while you tap on these points that help. But this will tone down that fight or flight response, okay, as you're going through. Even just tapping helps, tapping on the points, but there are like mantras that you can repeat. Um, like, okay, I'm going to do well on the exam. And if you could look, there's all different ways to approach the EFT. Obviously, you can't do that while you're taking the exam because that's going to look kind of weird, right? Um, but the inside of bottom, so like the inside right corner of your fingernail, if you tap on that in each spot, is also connected to that. So tapping, I do 2 or 3 taps on each finger. Um, that also can help take you out of the fight or flight mode. And then one more breathing technique is it's called starfish meditation. Again, you could do this like quiet, like students can do this quietly under their desk, but basically you follow the outline of your hand and just tracing it. But what you really do is you focus on how it tickles. Okay. And you can incorporate breathing with this too, where you inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Okay. So those are a couple ways to activate that vagus nerve to bring yourself or students out of the fight or flight mode. That is the key to recalling information on an exam. The more grounded and confident and like centered you are going into an exam, the easier that memory recall is going to be. So I hope today's podcast information helped. Today was a short one. So thank you for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you next week.